As Russia's attack on Ukraine enters its fifth year, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has issued a stern message to Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a video address from outside the presidential palace in Kiev, Zelensky said that Putin had failed to achieve his goals in Ukraine over the last 4 years, adding that he would do everything to achieve peace and to ensure there is justice.
Putin has not achieved his goals. He did not break the Ukrainians. He did not win this war. We have preserved Ukraine, and we will do everything to achieve peace and to ensure there is justice.
До весни менше тижня.
Let's also quickly cut across to Volodymyr Zelensky's address in the European Parliament. He is addressing the EU Parliament at the moment. Listen in.
And I thank everyone who is working to make it happen. Thanks, all of you. And it is important for us to receive a clear date for joining the EU. Very important. As a part of the diplomacy process right now, within all the diplomacy aimed at ending the war. And this is not just a wish. It's a clear understanding of how Putin will act. If there is no date, if there is no such guarantee, he will find a way to block Ukraine for decades by dividing you, by dividing Europe. We must protect ourselves from this. And I'm grateful to every European country that is working with us to support our energy system, our air defense, and our coalition of the willing. The coalition of the willing has already brought together European nations, the United States, Canada, Japan, and others. Please help give real substance to the work of the coalition of the willing, and truly be willing to end this war. In many ways, we can see how Russia shows contempt for Europe, but Russians should learn that Europe is not just a land for the villas of Russian oligarchs. It's not a museum for the lovers of Russian officials to admire beauty, and not a place of leisure for Russian killers. Russians must learn that Europe is a union of independent nations and millions of people who do not tolerate humiliation and will not accept violence. Please. Thank you. Please continue to defend the European way of life. Please support Ukraine. Please support our diplomacy for peace and be effective. Every result you achieve is a line that Putin cannot cross. Thank you for all these years. Thank you so much. Slava Ukraini!
All right, that's a standing ovation that the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is getting at the European Union Parliament. He just pitched, of course, for more support from Europe, as he did from the American president as well. 4 years of the Russia-Ukraine war, and Volodymyr Zelensky now being supported by Europe, as we can see by this standing ovation. Clearly, this war is still going on, and as Donald Trump said that, it is now getting frustrating for him as well to see that there is no end to this war. He's not being able to end the conflict that had now erupted between Russia and Ukraine 4 years back in 2022. Fifth year, of course, is what we're seeing this war entering into. Let's try and get a perspective on what this day means, what today, the 24th of February 2026, means for this war. I'm joined live on the broadcast by Mr. Ben Aris. He's founder and editor-in-chief of BNE Intel News and also former Moscow bureau chief for the Daily Telegraph. Ben, good afternoon from New Delhi. Welcome to WION. I want to start by asking you what you think either side has gained in 4 years of war. This is the 5th year that we're entering. Both sides had mentioned their aims of getting into this conflict. Do you think they have been able to achieve their goals?
Well, we should start by saying that nobody expected Ukraine to survive more than a week when the war broke out. At the time, the country was economically flat on its back. Its military was in disarray, massive underinvestment, corruption within stealing of arms and what have you. And it surprised everybody, I think themselves included, the resilience in order to stand up to the invading Russian army, which was much bigger, much more powerful, much better equipped, and to repulse them and prevent the Moscow from capturing Kiev in the first few days. And then that triggered the Ramstein round of support. The West suddenly realized that Ukraine is in with a chance of holding off Russia, and they started pouring arms and money into Ukraine. And that's been going on for 4 years. And here we are. We're now in a war of attrition that the Russians have captured just under 20% of Ukrainian territory, which, if you think about it, is amazingly poor result given the power of the Russian army. Nevertheless, the Ukrainians have not been able to expel the Russians nor deliver a military victory after campaigns in the first year where they did break through Russian lines and push them back. And that's partly to do with Europe's policy, the so-called escalation management, because lying behind this war is Europe's first fear is not Ukrainian defeat, but it's getting into a direct conflict with Russia. And consequently, Europe and the States, although the States has taken itself out of the game now, has been supplying with Ukraine with some but not enough arms and ammunition, enough to keep it in the war, but not enough to deliver a military victory.
Ben, you know, one of the biggest points of contention in this conflict has been territory, and in the last February 18 Geneva talks, that remained inconclusive and still, remains inconclusive. How do you see then this entire conflict moving forward? There has been a peace plan that has been presented by Donald Trump, but clearly, nobody is really adhering to it as far as implementing those are concerned.
Well, we haven't got to the point where there's a plan to implement. It's still being negotiated, the point. I'm cautiously optimistic because, as you say, after 4 years, there is now a real attempt at striking a peace deal. That's being led by the Trump administration. I should add the EU is not playing any role in that process at all. And the talks are continuing. I mean, they really took off and reached a decisive point in December, when the US envoys, together with Putin, agreed a framework 27-point plan. And what's going on now with the talks that just were in Geneva and are going to continue this week is, I believe, that they're thrashing out what could be a final deal because they're getting into the details and it's become more difficult. As for the thorniest questions of land and security guarantees for Ukraine, it's being suggested, and this looks like it's going to happen, that that's going to be kicked upstairs for a face-to-face meeting between Zelensky and Putin. And there's been progress there as well, because now there's a concrete proposal for the two presidents to meet in Geneva. And if this is going to happen, it has to happen sometime before May 15th, which is a deadline that Trump set for the need for both presidential elections and a referendum on Zelensky being able to give up territory. So it does look also like the issue of Zelensky's, the armed forces of Ukraine withdrawing from the bit of Donbass they're still hanging on to is also on the table. But of course, these talks are extremely difficult, fraught, and the president's meeting has not been confirmed yet. So we're still waiting to see what happens. But like I say, I'm cautiously optimistic that the talks are going forward and a peace deal is now possible by mid-May.
Okay, it's going to be interesting to see how this really moves forward and whether the two presidents will be able to meet. I'll leave it there. Ben Aris, thanks very much for sharing your perspective on WION.
My pleasure.
All right, let's move on and get you other updates now.